The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian, Chapter 8, How to Fight Monsters. The next morning, Dad drove me the 22 miles to Reardon. I'm scared, I said. I'm scared too, Dad said. He hugged me close. His breath smelled like mouthwash and lime vodka. You don't have to do this. You can always go back to the res school. No, I said, I have to do this. Can you imagine what would have happened to me if I hinted around and gone back to the res school? I would have been pummeled, mutilated, crucified. You can't just betray your tribe and then change your mind 10 minutes later. I was on a one way bridge. There was no way to turn around, even if I wanted to. Just remember this, my father said. Those white people aren't better than you. But he was so wrong, and he knew he was wrong. He was the loser Indian father of a loser Indian son, living in a world built for winners. But he loved me so much. He hugged me even closer. This is a great thing. You're so brave. You're a warrior. It was the best thing he could have said. Hey, here's some lunch money, he said and handed me $1. We were poor enough to get free lunch, but I didn't want to be the only Indian and a sad sack who needed charity. Thanks, Dad, I said. I love you, he said. I love you too. I felt stronger, so I stepped out of the car and I walked to the front door. It was locked, so I stood alone on the sidewalk and watched my father drive away. I hoped he'd drive right home and not stop in a bar and spend whatever money he had left. I stood alone at the front door for a very long minutes. It was still early and I had a black eye from Rowdy's goodbye punch. No, I had a purple, blue, yellow, and black eye. It looked like modern art. Then the white kids began arriving for school. They surrounded me. Those kids weren't just white, they were translucent. I could see the blue veins running through their skin like rivers. Most of the kids were my size or smaller, but there were 10 or 12 monster dudes. Giant white guys. They looked like men, not boys. They had to be seniors. Some of them looked like they had to shave 2 or 3 times a day. They stared at me, the Indian boy with the black eye and swollen nose, my going away, gifts from Rowdy. Those white kids couldn't believe their eyes. They stared at me like I was Bigfoot or a UFO. What was I doing at Reardon, whose mascot was an Indian, thereby making me the only other Indian in town? So what was I doing in racist Reardon, where more than half of the every graduating class went to college? Nobody in my family had ever gone near a college. Reardon was the opposite of the res. It was the opposite of my family. It was the opposite me. I didn't deserve to be there. I knew it. All those kids knew it. Indians don't deserve shit. So feeling worthless and stupid, I just waited, and pretty soon a janitor opened the front door and all of the other kids strolled inside. I stayed outside. Maybe I could just drop out of school completely. I could go live in the woods like a hermit, like a real Indian. Of course, since I was allergic to pretty much every plant that grew on earth, I would have been a real Indian with a head full of snot. Okay, I said, here I go. I walked into the school, I made my way to the front office, and I told them who I was. Oh, you're the one from the reservation, the secretary said. Yeah, I said. I couldn't tell if she thought the reservation was a good or a bad thing. My name is Melinda. Welcome to Reardon High School. Here's your schedule, a copy of the school constitution and moral code, and a temporary student ID. We've got you assigned to Mr. Grant for homeroom. You better hustle on down there. You're late. Ah, where is that? I asked. We've got one hallway here, she said and smiled. She had red hair and green eyes and was kind of sexy for an old woman. It's all the way down on the left. I shoved the paperwork into my backpack and I hustled down to my homeroom. I paused a second at the door and then I walked inside. Everybody, all of the students and the teachers stopped to stare at me. They stared hard, like I was bad weather. Take your seat, the teacher said. He was a muscular guy. I walked down the aisle and sat in the back row and tried to ignore all the stares and whispers until a blonde girl leaned towards me. Penelope. Yes, there are places left in the world where people are named Penelope. What's your name? Penelope asked. Junior, I said. She laughed and told her girlfriend at the next desk that my name was Junior. They both laughed and word spread around the room, and pretty soon everybody was laughing. They were laughing at my name. I had no idea that Junior was a weird name. It's a common name on my res, on any res. You walk into any trading post, any res in the United States and shout, "Hey, Junior!" And 17 guys will turn around and 3 women. But there were no other people named Junior and Reardon, so I was being laughed at because I was the only one who had that silly name. And then I felt smaller because the teachers were taking roll and he called out my name. Arnold Spirit, the teacher said. No, he yelled it. He was so big and muscular that his whisper was probably a scream. Here, I said, as quietly as possible. My whisper was only a whisper. Speak up, the teacher said. Here, I said. My name is Mr. Grant, he said. I'm here, Mr. Grant. He moved on to other students, but Penelope leaned towards me again, but she wasn't laughing at all. She was mad now. I thought you said your name was Junior, Penelope said. She accused me of telling her my real name. Well, okay, it wasn't completely my real name. My full name is Arnold Spirit Jr., but nobody calls me that. Everybody calls me Junior. Well, every other Indian calls me Junior. My name is Junior, and my name is Arnold. It's Junior and Arnold. I'm both. I felt like two people I felt like two different people inside one body. No, I felt like a magician slicing myself in half with Junior living on the north side of the Spokane River and Arnold living on the south. Where are you from? She asked. She was so pretty and her eyes were so blue. I was suddenly aware that she was the prettiest girl I had ever seen up close. She was movie star pretty. Hey, she said, I asked you where you're from. Wow, she was tough. Whelping it. Up on the the reservation. Oh, that's why you talk so funny. And yes, I had to stutter and lisp, but I also had that sing song reservation accent that made everything I said sound like a bad poem. Man, I was freaked. I didn't say another word for 6 days. And on the seventh day, I got in the weirdest fist fight of my life. But before I tell you about the weirdest fist fight of my life, I have to tell you the unofficial and unwritten, but you better follow them or you're going to get beaten twice as hard, Spokane Indian rules of fisticuff. Cuffs. 1. If somebody insults you, then you have to fight them. 2. If you think somebody is going to insult you, then you have to fight them. 3. If you think somebody is thinking about insulting you, then you have to fight them. 4. If somebody insults any of your family or friends, or if you think they're going to insult your family or friends, or if you think they're thinking about insulting your family or friends, then you have to fight them. You should never fight a girl unless she insults you, your family, or your friends. Then you have to fight her. If somebody beats up your father or your mother, then you have to fight the sons and or daughters of the person who beat up your mother or father. 7. If your mother or father beats up somebody, then that person's son and or daughter will fight you. 8. You must always pick fights with the sons and or daughters of any Indians who work for the Bureau of Indian Affairs. 9. You must always pick fights with the sons and or daughters of any white people who live anywhere on the reservation. 10. You get in a fight with somebody who is sure to beat you up, then you must throw the first punch because it's the only punch you'll ever get to throw. And 11. In any fight, the loser is the first one who cries. I knew those rules. I had memorized those rules. I lived my life by those rules. I got into my first fist fight when I was 3 years old, and I'd been in a dozen since. My all time record was 5 wins and 112 losses. Yes, I was a terrible fighter. I was a human punching bag. I lost fights to boys, girls, and kids half my age. One bully, Micah, made me beat up myself. Yes, he made me punch myself in the face 3 times. I'm the only Indian in the history of the world who ever lost a fight with himself. Okay, so now that you know about the rules, then I can tell you that I went from being a small target in Welpinit to being a larger target in Reardon. Well, let's get something straight. All those pretty white girls ignored me. But that was okay. Indian girls ignored me too, so I was used to it. And let's face it, most of the white boys ignored me too. But there were a few of those Reardon boys, the big jocks, who paid special attention to me. None of those guys punched me or got violent. After all, I was a reservation Indian, and no matter how geeky and weak I appeared to be, I was still a potential killer. So mostly they called me names. Lots of names. And yeah, those were bad enough, but I could handle them, especially when some huge monster boy was insulting me. But I knew I'd have to put a stop to it eventually, or I'd always be known as Chief or Tonto or Squall Boy. But I was scared. I wasn't scared of fist fighting with those boys. I'd been in plenty of fights, and I wasn't scared of losing fights with them either. I'd lost most every fight I'd been in. I was afraid those monsters were going to kill me. And I don't mean kill as in metaphor, I mean kill as in beat me to death. So weak and poor and scared, I let them call me names while I try to figure out what to do. And it might have continued that way if Roger the Giant hadn't taken it too far. It was lunchtime, and I was standing outside by the weird sculpture that was supposed to be an Indian. I was studying the sky like I was an astronomer, except it was daytime and I didn't have a telescope, so I was just an idiot. Roger the Giant and his gang of giants strutted over to me. Hey, Chief, Roger said. It seemed like he was 7 feet tall and 300 pounds. He was a farm boy who carried squealing pigs around like they were already thin slices of bacon. I stared at Roger and tried to look tough. I read once that you can scare away a charging bear if you wave your arms and look big, but I figured I just looked like a terrified idiot having an arm seizure. Hey, Chief, Roger said. You want to hear a joke? Sure, I said. And at this point, you can read the section. I felt like Roger had kicked me in the face. That was the most racist thing I'd ever heard in my life. Roger and his friends were laughing like crazy. I hated them and I knew I had to do something big. I couldn't let them get away with that shit. I wasn't just defending myself, I was defending Indians, black people, and Buffalo. So I punched Roger in the face. He wasn't laughing when he landed on his ass, and he wasn't laughing when his nose bled like red fireworks. I struck some fake karate pose because I knew Roger's gang was going to attack me for blooding their leader, but they just stared at me. They were shocked. You punched me, Roger said. His voice was thick with blood. I can't believe you punched me. He sounded insulted. He sounded like his poor little feelings had been hurt. I couldn't believe it. He acted like he was the one who had been wrong. You're an animal, he said. I felt brave all of a sudden. Yeah, maybe it was just a stupid and immature schoolyard fight, or maybe it was the most important moment in my life. Maybe I was telling the world that I was no longer a human target. You meet me after school right here, I said. Why? He asked. I couldn't believe he was so stupid. Because we're going to finish this fight. You're crazy, Roger said. He got to his feet and he walked away. His gang stared at me like it was a serial killer, and then they followed their leader. I was absolutely confused. I had followed the rules of fighting. I had behaved exactly the way I was supposed to behave, but these white boys had ignored the rules. In fact, they followed a whole other set of mysterious rules where people apparently did not get into fistfights. Wait, I called after Roger. What do you want? Roger asked. What are the rules? What rules? I didn't know what to say, so I just stood there, red and mute, like a stop sign. Roger and his friends disappeared. I felt like somebody had shoved me into a rocket ship and blasted me to a new planet. I was a freaky alien, and there were absolutely no way to get home. Chapter 9. Grandmother gives me some advice. I went home that night completely confused and terrified. If I'd punched an Indian in the face, then he would have spent most days plotting his revenge. And I imagined that white guys would also want revenge after getting punched in the face. So I figured Roger was going to run me over with a farm tractor or combine or grain truck or a runaway pig. I wish Rowdy was still my friend. I could have sent him after Roger. It would have been like King Kong battling Godzilla. I realized how much of my self worth, my sense of safety, was based on Rowdy's fist. But Rowdy hated me, and Roger hated me. I was good at being hated by guys who could kick my ass. It's not a talent you really want to have. My mother and father weren't home, so I turned to my grandmother for advice. Grandma, I punched this big guy in the face, and he just walked away, and now I'm afraid he's going to kill me. Why did you punch him? He was bullying me. You should have walked away. He called me chief and squaw boy. Then you should have kicked him in the balls. She pretended to kick a big guy in the crotch, and we were both laughing. Did he hit you? She asked. No, not at all. Not even after you hit him? Nope. And he's a big guy. Gigantic. I bet he could take Rowdy down. Wow, she said. It's strange, isn't it? What does it mean? Grandma thought hard for a while. I think it means he respects you, she said. Respect? No way. Yes way. You see, you men and boys are like a pack of wild dogs. This giant boy is the alpha male of the school, and you're the new dog, so he pushed you around a bit to see how tough you are. But I'm not tough at all, I said. Yeah, but you punched the alpha dog in the face. They're going to respect you now. I love you, Grandma, but you're crazy. I couldn't sleep that night because I kept thinking about my impending doom. I knew Roger would be waiting for me in the morning at school. I knew he'd punch me in the head and shoulder area about 200 times. I knew I'd be in a hospital drinking soup through a straw. So exhausted and terrified, I went to school. My day began as it usually did. I got out of bed at dark 30 and rummaged about the kitchen for anything to drink. All I could find was a package of orange fruit juice. So I made a gallon of that and I drank it all down. And then I went into the bedroom and I asked mom and dad if they were driving me to school. Don't have gas, dad said, and went back to sleep. Great, I'd have to walk. So I put on my shoes and coat and I started down the hallway. I got lucky because my dad's best friend Eugene just happened to be heading to Spokane. Eugene was a good guy and like an uncle to me, but he was drunk all the time. Not stinky drunk, just drunk enough to be drunk. He was funny and a kind drunk, always wanting to laugh and hug you and sing songs and dance. Funny how the saddest guys can be happy drunks. Hey, Junior, hop on my pony, man. So I hopped on the back of Eugene's bike and off we went, barely in control. I just closed my eyes and held on, and pretty soon Eugene got me to school. We pulled up in front, and a lot of my classmates just stared. I mean, Eugene had braids down to his butt for once, and neither of us wore helmets for the other. I suppose we looked dangerous. Man, he said, there's a lot of white people here. Yeah, you doing all right with them? I don't know, I guess. It's pretty cool you doing this. You think? Yeah, man, I could never do this. I'm a wuss. Wow, I felt proud. Thanks for the ride. You bet. He laughed and buzzed away. I walked up to the school and I tried to ignore the stares of my classmates. And then I saw Roger walk out the front door. Man, I was going to have to fight. Shit, my whole life is a fight. Hey, Roger said. Hey, who's that on the bike? Oh, that's my dad's best friend. That's a cool bike, he said. Vintage. Yeah, he just got it. You ride with him a lot? Yeah, I said. I lied. Cool. Yeah, cool. All right then. I'll see you around. And then he walked away. Wow, he didn't kick my ass. He was actually nice. He paid me some respect. He paid respect to Eugene and his bike. Maybe grandmother was right. Maybe I had challenged the alpha dog and was now being rewarded for it. I love my grandmother. She's the smartest person on the planet. Feeling almost like a human being, I walked into the school and I saw Penelope the Beautiful. Hey, Penelope, I said, hoping she knew I was now accepted by the dog pack. She didn't even respond to me. Maybe she hadn't heard me. Hey, Penelope, I said again. She looked at me and sniffed. She sniffed like I smelled bad or something. Do I know you? She said. There was only about 100 students in the whole school, right? So of course she knew me. She was just being a bitch. I'm Junior. I'm Arnold. Oh, that's right. You're the boy who can't figure out his own name. And her friends giggled. I was so ashamed. I might have impressed the king, but the queen still hated me. I guess my grandmother didn't know everything.